We live in a paradox, a world where humanity holds more knowledge about the universe than any generation before us, and yet somehow we often feel smaller, more uncertain, and more divided than ever. We've built machines that can peer into the heart of galaxies billions of light years away, but we still struggle to understand what it means to truly look inward. We have rovers rolling across the surface of Mars, whispering back stories from another world, while here on Earth, we scroll past the stars on our phones without even noticing they're still above us. It's a strange thing, isn't it? To be so cosmically informed, yet existentially unmoored. We know the shape of the solar system, but not the direction of our species. So tonight, I want to pose a question, one that begins as science fiction, but ends as something much larger. What happens if Jupiter disappears? Now that sounds like a question about a planet, doesn't it? About orbits and gravity and the balance of the solar system. And yes, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how Jupiter's gravitational pull shapes the very architecture of our cosmic neighborhood, how it protects Earth, how it stabilizes the dance of worlds around the Sunday. But that's not really what this question is about, because to ask, what happens if Jupiter disappears, is to ask something deeper, something human. It's to wonder, what happens when the guardians of our universe vanish? What happens when the things that quietly hold everything together are suddenly gone? You see, Jupiter's not just a planet. It's a force of balance, a silent custodian that keeps chaos at bay. And if we're honest with ourselves, so much of our human story is about the same thing, about forces we never see directly, yet depend on entirely. If Jupiter were to vanish right now, if in this instant, that colossal sphere of hydrogen and helium simply winked out of existence, we might not notice at first, not right away, because light, as fast as it is, takes time to travel. It takes about 43 minutes for sunlight to reach Jupiter. That means that for 43 minutes, even after it disappeared, we'd still see it shining faintly in our telescopes, still orbiting as if nothing had happened. 43 minutes of illusion, the universe's final act of denial. But then, gravity would realize what light had not yet admitted, and the solar system would begin to shift. The planets, our cosmic neighbors, would feel it first. The intricate web of gravitational tugs and counterbalances that Jupiter sustains would unravel. Asteroids, once locked in stable belts, would begin to wander. Comets, once safely guided away from Earth, would alter their trajectories. The silent architecture of stability, the one that allowed life to emerge here, on this pale blue dot would start to tremble. Now, scientifically speaking, Jupiter's gravity acts like a cosmic bouncer. It stands at the outer edge of our solar system, deflecting troublemakers. Asteroids, comets, chunks of primordial debris, all remnants of creation, are constantly tugged this way and that by the sun's pull. Without Jupiter's massive gravity well, many of them would have found their way toward Earth. So, in a very real sense, Jupiter has been our guardian, our shield, a planet that has taken the punches so that we didn't have to. But here's where the metaphor deepens. Every civilization, every generation has its Jupiters. It's unseen forces that quietly protect, stabilize, and sustain. Sometimes they're people teachers, scientists, leaders, parents. Sometimes they're ideas, democracy, reason, compassion. Sometimes they're values we stop noticing because we assume they'll always be there. Until one day, they aren't. And then, just like the solar system, without Jupiter, everything begins to drift. You see, Jupiter's story is not just about gas and gravity. It's about structure, consequence, and interdependence. Without Jupiter, Earth's orbit wouldn't instantly collapse, but over time, chaos would accumulate. And chaos is patient. It doesn't rush. It waits for the small cracks to widen. That's how instability begins, not with explosions, but with quiet shifts. Not with asteroids raining down immediately, but with probabilities compounding. And isn't that a mirror to us? Our societies rarely fall apart overnight. They unravel slowly when the unseen guardians' trust, truth, integrity begin to vanish. Chaos doesn't announce itself. It creeps in through the margins, in the orbits, in the habits, in the places where we assume stability will hold forever. If Jupiter disappeared, Earth wouldn't notice tomorrow, or even next year. Seasons would still come and go. The moon would still paint the oceans in silver. We'd still argue over politics, stream movies, and measure time by the turning of the sky. But somewhere out beyond Mars, the asteroids would start to wander. Their paths, once shaped by Jupiter's invisible hand, would begin to twist, slowly, imperceptibly, until one day, one of them would cross ours. That's how the universe works. Not through sudden drama, but through the patient mathematics of consequence. And that's how civilizations work too. You remove reason a little, you neglect empathy a little, you forget to teach history just a little, and at first, nothing happens. The world still spins, the lights still come on, the illusion of stability holds until it doesn't. Then one day, an asteroid of our own making misinformation, intolerance, apathy comes hurtling toward us, and we wonder why the sky looks so unfamiliar. To understand what would truly happen if Jupiter vanished, we need to remember what it is. It's the largest planet in our solar system, more massive than all the others combined. 11 times wider than Earth, made mostly of hydrogen and helium, the same ingredients that fuel stars. In fact, if Jupiter were about 80 times more massive, it would have ignited, becoming a second Sunday. Imagine that. Our night sky filled not with darkness, but with a dim companion star, painting the solar system in twin light. Jupiter sits on that edge, not a star, but not just a planet either. It's a reminder of thresholds, of how small differences in mass, in energy and chance can change the entire destiny of a world. That too feels familiar, because in our own lives, we live on thresholds all the time. The difference between progress and regression, between justice and cruelty, between knowledge and ignorance is rarely a chasm. It's often just a few missing steps, a few neglected truths, a few moments of silence when someone should have spoken. And so when Jupiter disappears, the solar system doesn't just lose a planet, it loses the memory of how things hold together. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's look at the physics of this vanishing. The instant Jupiter disappears, its gravitational field, the invisible web that tethers moons, asteroids, and the subtle balance of the outer solar system would vanish too. Its 4 great moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, would drift free, becoming orphans of the Sunday. Imagine Europa, that icy moon, with a global ocean beneath its frozen crust, suddenly alone, no longer bound by Jupiter's embrace. Imagine Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, more massive than Mercury, tumbling into a new orbit, uncertain of its path. It's as celestial orphaning worlds that once knew where they belonged, now set adrift. And maybe that's another reflection of us. Because what happens when our own gravitational centers disappear? When the institutions, mentors, or moral compasses that held us steady are gone? Do we find a new orbit? Or do we spiral outward, endlessly searching for something to belong to? The disappearance of Jupiter isn't just a loss of mass, it's a loss of meaning. If we zoom out, if we take the God's eye view, the cosmic perspective, we realize that Jupiter's role has always been about protection through presence. Its gravity catches what might otherwise destroy us. And yet, it never asks for recognition. No songs, no myths of heroism, just a silent endurance, keeping the cosmic neighborhood orderly enough for life to thrive here, 500 million miles away. And that, perhaps, is the most profound part of its story. The idea that something can be immensely important and almost entirely unseen. Our modern world struggles with that truth. We celebrate what's visible, the loud, the trending, the viral, and we forget the quiet forces that make everything else possible. Science, for instance, doesn't trend easily. Curiosity doesn't always get headlines, but they are our Jupiters. They protect us from ignorance, from chaos, from collapsing into superstition. If we allow those to disappear, if we defund them, mock them, mistrust them, we set loose the asteroids of our own undoing. There's a saying in astronomy, gravity doesn't negotiate. You can't argue with it, you can't bribe it, you can't ignore it. You either understand it or you suffer its consequences. The same is true for truth itself. You can deny it, rewrite it, shout over it, but the universe doesn't care. The orbit of reality remains, indifferent to our opinions. When Jupiter disappears, we learn a hard lesson. The universe doesn't collapse out of spite. It collapses out of indifference. Because stability requires stewardship. Gravity alone doesn't sustain order. Someone somewhere has to pay attention. And that brings us home to us, here on this tiny planet, orbiting an average star in a vast, mostly empty galaxy. We often imagine ourselves as the protagonists of the cosmos, as if the universe was made to cradle our consciousness. But the more we learn, the more we realize how small, how improbable, how fragile our existence is. The universe doesn't guarantee us survival. It merely allows the possibility. And that possibility depends on balance, not just gravitational, but moral, intellectual, and ecological. When Jupiter disappears, the solar system teeters on chaos. When wisdom disappears, humanity does the same. But there's another side to this story, one less tragic, more revealing. Because when you think about it, the fact that we even ask the question, what happens if Jupiter disappears, says something extraordinary about us. We're a species that dares to imagine cosmic loss. We don't just look at the stars, we simulate their absence. We model destruction so we can preserve creation. That's not despair. That's awareness. That's responsibility. Jupiter reminds us that power can exist in silence, that protection can exist without applause, and that our universe, despite its coldness, is a mirror for human behavior scaled to infinity. Now let's stretch our imagination further out into the long timeline of the cosmos. When Jupiter vanishes, the change is silent. There is no cosmic bang, no bright flash, just the subtle shifting of trajectories written in Newton's calculus. The orbits of asteroids begin to evolve chaotically, nudged by the smaller gravitational pulls of Mars and Saturn. At first, the numbers look stable, but in time, hundreds of thousands, then millions of years, the delicate resonances that once kept the asteroid belt in its lanes dissolve. Small bodies begin to migrate inward, their orbits eccentric and unpredictable. A few, perturbed by Saturn's competing tug, fall toward the inner solar system. Every so often, one strikes a planet. Not right away, but inevitably. The universe is patient. One of those planets is ours. It would not be a single extinction event that undoes us, but a long era of celestial roulette. Life on Earth would live under a different sky, one in which probability itself had turned against us. Every species that looks up at night would be gambling on survival. And so Jupiter's disappearance becomes a thought experiment in risk. In physics, we call it the removal of a stabilizing parameter. In philosophy, it's the removal of wisdom. The analogy holds. Jupiter, you could say, is the solar system's elder. It was born first swollen from the primordial gas left after the sun ignited. Its enormous gravity helped shape the rest of the planets. Without it, the inner solar system might have collected too much debris, forming super-Earths or never forming at all. So when we imagine Jupiter vanishing, we are erasing our own origin story. The conditions that allowed Earth to exist would be rewritten backward in time. If we were to replay cosmic history without that giant's influence, there might be no Earth, no oceans, no people to ask what would happen. That realization humbles me, because it tells us that every comfort we enjoy, every breath, every sunrise, is the consequence of stability earned over billions of years. Stability is not given, it's inherited. It's the interest we draw from an ancient cosmic investment. When we neglect the things that sustain us, our environment, our knowledge, our empathy, we are, in a sense, removing our own Jupiter. But here's the paradox. The same gravity that protects us also limits us. Jupiter's massive pull has prevented a planet from forming in the asteroid belt. It keeps countless fragments from coalescing into something new. Protection and inhibition, two sides of the same gravitational coin. That duality lives in human society too. We crave safety, but too much of it can stifle growth. We need stability, but absolute stability is stagnation. Civilization, like orbit, survives by balancing between the pull of order and the freedom of motion. If Jupiter disappeared, chaos would rise. If Jupiter grew too massive, it might have swallowed us entirely. Balance is not found, it is maintained. Let's return to those moons, the four Galilean worlds. Each tells a story about the extremes of physics and imagination. Io is the most volcanic world in the solar system, its surface reshaped constantly by tidal stress from Jupiter's gravity. Remove Jupiter and Io falls silent, its volcanoes freeze mid-eruption. The most geologically active body becomes geologically dead. Europa, by contrast, might awaken. No longer stretched by Jupiter's tides, its internal heat would drop, its ice thickening until the ocean beneath it froze solid. If there were any life swimming in those hidden seas, it would perish slowly under kilometers of ice. Ganymede and Callisto would drift into lonely orbits, cold and irrelevant to anyone but the Sunday. Over millions of years, they might find new partners, captured perhaps by Saturn or expelled into interstellar space. Two worlds, once part of a family, now wanderers between stars. Doesn't that sound eerily familiar? When the force that binds a community disappears, its members drift, some collapse inward, others flee outward. The pattern repeats from atoms to galaxies to civilizations. Every now and then, astronomers find a rogue planet, a world that has been ejected from its solar system entirely, drifting through the interstellar dark with no star to warm it. There could be billions of them, silent, invisible, forgotten. And I wonder, in the grand story of intelligence, how many civilizations became rogue before us? How many lost their gravitational center not to physics, but to pride, to greed, to forgetfulness, and were flung into the cold between stars? The question isn't rhetorical, it's a warning written in starlight. From the cosmic to the human, the scale changes, but the equation does not. Gravity, in its essence, is connection. It is the universe's way of saying nothing stands alone. Every atom, every idea, every choice exerts a pull on something else. When we break that chain, when we convince ourselves that what we do doesn't matter, we start to drift toward the void. So when we ask, what happens if Jupiter disappears? We might also be asking, what happens if connection disappears? The answer in both cases is entropy. Let me tell you a story from our own history, a terrestrial echo of Jupiter's lesson. In the early 20th century, we discovered that leaded gasoline was poisoning the air. It was a slow, invisible crisis, much like the gravitational shifts after Jupiter's absence. The science was clear, but inconvenient. And for decades, denial was easier than adjustment. The invisible forces of commerce and comfort acted like Jupiter's missing gravity, pulling us toward disaster. It took persistence, data, and courage to restore balance. We learned painfully that protecting our environment requires constant awareness, not a single heroic act. The cosmos teaches the same truth. Stability is not static, it's dynamic equilibrium. The moment you stop tending it, it unravels. Now imagine 1,000,000 years after Jupiter's disappearance. The inner solar system has endured impacts, perhaps even new craters on Earth and Mars. Saturn, now the largest remaining giant, tries to take over Jupiter's role, but its distance makes it a poor substitute. The asteroid belt has thinned, comets plunge sunward more frequently. The night sky changes subtly, planetary alignments that once repeated every few centuries no longer occur. Future astronomers, if any remain, would write different equations to describe the harmony of the spheres. To them, the absence of Jupiter would be normal. They would not mourn what they never knew. And that, to me, is the saddest possibility of all. Not that we lose what sustains us, but that future generations forget it ever existed. Here on Earth, we are living through our own version of that forgetfulness. We forget the forests that once stretched unbroken across continents. We forget the rivers before they were dams. We forget the skies before they were mapped by satellites. Forgetting is easy when comfort is consistent, but the universe does not forgive forgetfulness. It records it in the fabric of consequence. So perhaps the true purpose of this thought experiment is not to mourn Jupiter's disappearance, but to remind ourselves that we must notice what still exists, to recognize our own invisible guardians before they fade from memory. That's the heart of awareness. And awareness, when practiced long enough, becomes responsibility. Responsibility for the stability of a planet, of a civilization, of a mind. Because if Jupiter is the solar system's shield, then each of us is a miniature version of that planet capable of absorbing impact, of protecting the fragile orbits around us, our families, our communities, our ecosystems. We cannot replicate Jupiter's gravity, but we can emulate its purpose. In the end, if Jupiter were to disappear, the solar system would go on, altered but alive. It would adapt, perhaps even find new patterns of order. That is what the universe does. It experiments until something works. But life on Earth has a choice the cosmos does not: awareness. We can choose to notice the invisible, to care before catastrophe, to restore balance before chaos becomes inevitable. And that, I think, is the real answer to our opening paradox. Why we feel lost in an age of knowledge? It's not because the universe has become more complex. It's because we have stopped feeling its gravity. There's something noble about giants. Not because they are large, but because their very existence reshapes the world around them. Jupiter never asked to be worshipped. It simply was, and by being, it gave structure to everything else. Giants in history often do the same. The ones who build bridges of understanding, who protect ideas the way Jupiter protects worlds, rarely get the luxury of silence. They are battered by criticism, by misunderstanding, by the gravity of expectation. Yet without them, civilization would wobble, like a planet whose orbit has lost its anchor. When we lose our giants, our teachers, our scientists, our artists, our moral leaders, we lose something more than people. We lose stabilizing mass. And just like the solar system, we don't notice right away. The night sky looks the same, the stars still rise, but deep down, the resonance has shifted. The invisible balance begins to decay. In the vacuum left behind, smaller bodies start to collide. Without Jupiter, asteroids crash more often. Without guidance, ideas clash more violently. The absence of a moderating force does not create freedom, it creates noise. That is why knowledge, like gravity, must be continuous. Each generation inherits the orbit of the last. If we stop teaching, stop questioning, stop measuring, we drift into ignorance by default. The only thing the universe guarantees is entropy. Everything else requires effort. It is comforting perhaps to think of Jupiter as a planet, but it is wiser to think of it as a principle. Order earned through mass, protection born of presence. Look again at that striped world. Each band of color is a jet stream, a storm larger than our entire planet. The Great Red Spot alone could swallow 3 Earths, yet it has raged for at least 350 years. Imagine a storm that ancient, older than every modern nation, still spinning with undiminished power. But here's the twist. Even the Great Red Spot is shrinking. In the last few decades, telescopes have shown its borders tightening, its hue fading. One day it may vanish entirely. The storm that once symbolized permanence is itself impermanent. And that, I think, is the universe whispering a gentle truth. Nothing, not even the giants, lasts forever. The goal, then, is not to cling to permanence, but to contribute to continuity. We can't stop storms from ending, but we can ensure the atmosphere of knowledge keeps moving. Now, step back. Picture the solar system as an orchestra. The sun conducts with gravity. The planets are instruments, each playing its orbital note. Jupiter provides the bass line, the deep, resonant pulse that keeps the rhythm steady. Take away the bass, and at first the melody continues. The violins Mercury and Venus still dance near the conductor, but listen closely. The rhythm falters, the harmony thins. Dissonance creeps in until the music collapses into noise. That is what the disappearance of Jupiter would sound like silence where resonance used to be. And on Earth, that same silence appears when we stop listening to science, to reason, to each other. There's a concept in astrophysics called the Hill sphere, the region around a planet where its gravity dominates. Within it, moons can orbit safely. Beyond it, they are lost to the Sunday. You have a Hill sphere too, so do I. Every person carries a region of influence, family, friends, community, where our choices have gravitational pull. When Jupiter disappears, its hill sphere vanishes instantly. The moons go free, but freedom without orbit is exile. So ask yourself, what happens when you vanish from your sphere? Do the people and ideas that depended on your gravity collapse? Or have you taught them to hold their own orbits? That is the measure of true leadership, not how brightly you shine, but how well the system endures when you're gone. Jupiter's mass comes from hydrogen, the simplest element in the universe. 2 protons and 2 electrons, that's all. The most complex planetary influence built from the simplest ingredients. That's another cosmic lesson. Complexity emerges from simplicity repeated at scale. Kindness, honesty, curiosity, simple forces, but apply them again and again, and they become civilization's gravity wells. Remove them, and the whole structure begins to drift. Let's talk time. If you were to watch Jupiter orbit the sun once, you need 12 Earth years. That means since your last middle school graduation, Jupiter has barely completed a single lap. The planet's patience dwarfs ours. While we measure time in weeks and news cycles, Jupiter measures it in centuries of motion. Its storms teach persistence. Its orbit teaches endurance. If it vanished, we'd lose that example of cosmic patience. And maybe that's what we're missing most in our world, time enough to think before reacting, to orbit before colliding, to revolve instead of revolt. Now, let's widen the field of view. Jupiter is not unique. Around other stars, we found thousands of hot Jupiters, massive gas giants, orbiting perilously close to their suns. Some are so near that a year lasts only a few days. Their atmospheres boil away, stripped by stellar winds. The universe, it seems, makes giants easily. What it rarely makes is balance. Our Jupiter sits at the perfect distance, close enough to guard us, far enough to let us live. So again, we return to balance. It's not only a matter of physics, it's a moral geometry. The same equations that keep planets stable also describe empathy, responsibility, and wisdom. Too little gravity, and the system flies apart. Too much, and nothing moves. Between chaos and tyranny lies orbit, the space where life can breathe. Let's imagine for a moment that we could replace Jupiter. Suppose humanity, with its future technology, decides to engineer an artificial planet, a gravitational anchor to restore balance. Could we do it? Mathematically, perhaps. Ethically, we'd have to ask, who decides the orbit of worlds? When we play the role of cosmic architects, we also inherit cosmic accountability. The question echoes back to Earth. When we redesign our planet's climate, its ecosystems, its digital landscape, are we not building artificial Jupiters of our own, new centers of gravity that shape everything else? Every innovation is a gravitational act. It draws others toward it, sometimes irresistibly. That's why the choice of what we create matters. A technology without ethics is just an asteroid waiting for impact. If you stand outside on a clear night, somewhere far from city lights, you can find Jupiter easily. It shines steady, unlike a twinkling star. Ancient people noticed that too. They named it after their kings of gods, Zeus, Marduk, Indra, because even without telescopes, they sensed its dominance. Think about that. Long before Newton, long before Galileo, people felt the pull of a planet they didn't even know existed as a sphere. They felt its gravity not through equations, but through awe. That instinct to feel wonder before understanding is our first science. It is the same spark that led us from firelight to starlight. Lose that, and it's not just Jupiter that disappears, it's curiosity itself. So what happens if Jupiter disappears? On one level, the physics are clear. Orbits destabilize, debris increases, the probability of impact rises. On another level, the meaning is profound. We learn what it costs to ignore the quiet giants, the slow guardians, the principles that keep chaos from swallowing the fragile order we call civilization. The universe is not obligated to protect us, but it has given us a template for how protection works. Mass where it matters, motion where it's needed, balance between them both. Our task is to imitate that, not in space, but here on this delicate world that hangs, improbably, in the sun's gravity well. When we look at Jupiter through a telescope, we see 3 dimensions: width, height, depth. But what we don't see, and what every physicist knows is there, is the 4th: time. Time turns every orbit into a spiral, every still image into motion. Take away time, and the universe becomes a photograph, beautiful but lifeless. And yet there's another dimension, one that no telescope can detect and no equation can quantify. Call it the fifth dimension, awareness. Awareness is what turns observation into understanding, data into meaning, survival into purpose. It's what allows a creature of carbon and water to look at a distant gas giant and ask, what happens if that disappears? That question alone proves we are part of the universe that knows itself. Awareness carries responsibility. Because once you see how delicately everything connects, you can no longer pretend that your actions are isolated. Every light you turn on at night is powered by a chain of stars that lived and died billions of years ago. Every breath you take contains atoms forged in supernovae. You are literally borrowing matter from the cosmos, spending stardust on the project of being human. When Jupiter disappears in our thought experiment, the cosmic chain trembles. When empathy disappears in our world, the human chain does the same. And if awareness is our fifth dimension, responsibility is its gravity, the force that keeps knowledge from drifting into apathy. Let's go back to the age of the space race. In 1969, when Apollo 11 touched down on the moon, humanity saw Earth for the first time as a single glowing sphere suspended in blackness. That image, the blue marble, did what no treaty or speech could. It reminded us that borders are imaginary lines drawn on a real planet. For a moment, the entire species shared a common frame of reference, as if we had all looked up and seen Jupiter together. But that moment was fragile. In the decades that followed, we turned our gaze inward again toward competition, consumption, the small gravity wells of our own making. We forgot that looking outward is not an escape. It's an education. Space doesn't make us smaller. It shows us what scale really means. If Jupiter disappeared tomorrow, our telescopes would notice, but our hearts might not, at least not right away. But if curiosity disappeared, if our desire to explore and to ask and to learn vanished, our civilization would fade faster than any planet could. That's why exploration matters. It's not about rockets or budgets. It's about preserving the species' gravitational pull toward understanding. We send probes to Jupiter, not to escape Earth, but to understand Earth better. We study its storms to learn about our own. We search its moons for life, not because we're lonely, but because we want to know what life can be. Exploration is humanity's way of maintaining its orbit around meaning. Now, look forward 100 years. Imagine a generation standing on Mars, or orbiting Europa, or sailing a ship through the methane seas of Titan. They will look back toward the sun and see Jupiter as a brilliant jewel in the black, a reminder of where gravity and wisdom align. And maybe they'll tell their children, once there was a world called Earth that learned to protect itself by understanding what could be lost. That's the story I hope we write. Jupiter teaches us that strength and humility are not opposites. A planet made of gas holds the solar system together. A species made of frailty builds machines that cross interplanetary space. In both cases, power comes not from solidity, but from persistence. Hydrogen, the simplest thing in the universe, becomes the mightiest when it gathers enough of itself. Humans, the simplest animals with awareness, become extraordinary when we gather enough understanding. That's the equation. Simplicity multiplied by scale equals significance. So what happens if Jupiter disappears? The asteroids wander. The comets change course. The delicate resonance of worlds falters. But if we disappear, if awareness, curiosity, compassion, and responsibility fade, then meaning itself collapses. The stars will still shine, physics will continue, but there will be no one left to wonder why. The universe doesn't need us to function. But it becomes infinitely more interesting when we're here to notice it. Every civilization is a solar system of ideas. Each idea is a planet, each value a moon, each act of understanding a beam of sunlight. Somewhere in that system, there must always be a Jupiter, a guardian principle, massive enough to keep chaos in check. It could be science, it could be empathy, it could be justice. Whatever it is, it must be protected. Because when the guardian disappears, the rest will slowly fall out of orbit. And so we return to where we began. The paradox of our age. We are surrounded by technology that amplifies our power, and yet the same tools amplify our confusion. We know more about the universe than any generation before us, but we seem less certain about our place within it. Maybe the answer is not to reach farther, but to look deeper to recognize the invisible gravities that hold us together. To remember that behind every stable orbit lies a silent act of stewardship. The cosmos doesn't offer guarantees, only opportunities. And right now, while our small blue world still shines between the stars, we have the chance to choose awareness over apathy, connection over chaos, Jupiter over nothing. So the next time you look up and see that bright point in the night sky, the one that doesn't twinkle, that moves slowly among the stars, pause for a moment. That's Jupiter, our ancient guardian, our teacher of gravity and grace. Think about what it does for us, quietly, invisibly, without reward. And then ask yourself, in my small corner of the universe, who or what am I protecting? Because in the end, the stability of the solar system isn't only written in physics, it's written in behavior. Each of us is a planet. Each decision, a tug on the fabric of everything else. And together, we decide whether our orbits stay in harmony or drift into darkness. That's what happens if Jupiter disappears. The solar system survives, but the music fades. The question then is not whether Jupiter will vanish, but whether we will remember why it mattered. When the Apollo missions ended, there was a question no one quite knew how to answer. What comes next? The moon had been touched, the flag planted, the cameras packed away. For a moment, humanity had looked outward together, and then, almost imperceptibly, we looked away. But space has a way of calling us back. It whispers through every child who stares at the night sky and wonders where the light comes from. It pulls on us the same way Jupiter pulls on comets, gently, persistently, irresistibly toward curiosity. Today, new explorers have taken up that call. They build rovers that hum across alien soil, telescopes that peer into the afterglow of creation, spacecraft that slingshot around Jupiter itself, tasting its magnetic breath and sampling its storms. Each mission carries more than instruments. It carries intent, the intent to understand what sustains us and what could undo us. Because knowing how the universe works is the only way to know how to work within it. In every age, we define ourselves by what we aim at. When we aimed for the moon, we learned humility. When we aim for Mars, we are learning endurance. And one day, when we reach the outer planets again, we will be learning stewardship, how to live not as conquerors of nature, but as participants in its design. Jupiter will still be there, waiting. Its storms rolling on without pause. And when our probes orbit it, recording the lightning and the wind, they will be measuring something more than weather. They will be measuring our progress not in miles, but in meaning. Every discovery changes us. The telescope turned the heavens from mystery into map. The microscope turned the invisible into life. And one day, when we look into the hearts of distant worlds and find oceans under ice or clouds thick with chemistry, we will be reminded that life itself is a cosmic habit, the universe's way of keeping score of its own potential. But that revelation comes with a warning. Awareness cannot remain theoretical. The same intellect that lets us probe Jupiter's moons must also protect our own. Because the only planet that truly needs saving is the one that holds the telescope. When you stand beneath the night sky, remember that you are already in space. The atmosphere above you is thinner than the skin of an apple compared to the size of the planet. You are right now clinging to a small, fragile world hurtling through the vacuum at 67,000 miles per hour. And yet, within this improbable vessel, consciousness has arisen. We are the universe, briefly aware of itself and responsible for what it knows. So the question, what happens if Jupiter disappears, becomes something else? What happens if we disappear from wonder, from responsibility, from connection? The universe would go on, of course. Stars would still ignite. Galaxies would still spin. Gravity would still weave its invisible web. But there would be no one left to ask why. No more questions, no more stories, no more songs to Jupiter. And that, more than any physical catastrophe, would be the true loss, the vanishing of awareness itself, the quiet end of curiosity. So as long as we live, as long as there are eyes to look upward and minds to ponder the darkness, let Jupiter remind us that even the giants can disappear, that silence is the cost of neglect, and that balance, cosmic or human, is always earned, never given. Our task is not to preserve the universe. It does not need our help. Our task is to preserve the capacity to feel its vastness, to learn from its patience, to imitate its balance, to look up and then look inward and make sure that in the long history of the cosmos, awareness itself never disappears. Because one day, when our descendants travel beyond the solar system and look back across the gulf of light years, they will see the sun as a faint spark, Jupiter as an invisible ripple, and Earth, our home, as a dot so small it barely registers. But they will know that on that dot, once upon a time, life learned to understand the stars. And that knowledge, that awareness, that responsibility will be our greatest legacy. The lights come up. The audience breathes again. Outside, the night waits not as emptiness, but as invitation. Every person who walks out of this room or takes off their headphones after hearing these words carries a small piece of that awareness with them. You don't have to build rockets to feel connected to Jupiter. You don't have to memorize orbital mechanics to honor what that planet teaches. You only have to pay attention to the sky, to each other, to the fragile balance that keeps a world alive. The universe is old, patient, and indifferent, but we are not. We are temporary, impulsive, emotional. And yet somehow, that is what gives our awareness weight. It's what makes our gravity human. So tonight, when you look up and find that steady golden light just above the horizon, know that you are watching a lesson older than language. Jupiter doesn't speak, but it reminds us nothing exists alone. Every orbit, every storm, every heartbeat participates in the same law to pull, to be pulled, to move together through space and time. And if we remember that if we keep noticing, keep learning, keep caring, then even if the giants one day disappear, the meaning they gave us will not. We end where we began, in wonder, in a universe vast enough to dwarf us and yet intimate enough to depend on us. The question was never really, what happens if Jupiter disappears? The question was always, what happens if we forget why it mattered? The lecture hall empties. Somewhere outside, a car engine starts, a phone buzzes, a child asks what time it is. Life continues, the same way the planets continue after a comet passes through. That's the quiet beauty of motion. It never really ends, it only changes direction. When I look up now and see Jupiter rising over the horizon, I think about all the invisible work it's doing. Every second, its gravity deflects debris. We'll never see. Earth stays safe, and no one applauds. It's a reminder that most of what keeps the world together happens without witness. Your heartbeat. A teacher explaining photosynthesis to a sleepy classroom. A scientist calibrating a sensor no one will ever read about. A friend deciding quietly to forgive. Those are the human equivalents of Jupiter's gravity-silent stabilizers of the system. We don't have to be giants to keep the universe in balance. We just have to add our small mass to the right place. The physicists like to say that energy is never lost. It only changes form. The same could be said for meaning. Every idea, every act of kindness, every moment of understanding transfers forward into someone else's orbit. That's how a civilization persists, long after its builders are gone by momentum of compassion. So maybe that's the real inheritance Jupiter leaves us. Not the lesson of size, but of service. Not the power of gravity, but the grace of continuity. If we can live that way in motion, in balance, aware, then awareness itself becomes our gravity well. It keeps us from drifting too far from what matters. Now the night grows colder. The last telescope lens is capped. The sky is dark, but it's not empty. It's filled with possibilities waiting to be noticed. Look up once more. There's Jupiter, a pale, steady light against the dark. Let it remind you that the universe is not somewhere else. You're already inside it. The same laws that guide the planets guide you. The same equations that shape galaxies shape your choices. And the same responsibility that keeps the solar system stable belongs in miniature to you. So keep orbiting meaning. Keep pulling others toward understanding. Keep your gravity kind. Because one day, when someone else looks up and wonders what holds their world together, they'll feel the echo of your pull, and the system will still be in harmony. And if there is a single task worthy of our brief time beneath these stars, it is this. Remember the guardians. Become one when you can, and never mistake silence for safety. Keep a little gravity in reserve for the moments that matter. When a young mind reaches for an answer, when a community wobbles, when the truth needs the steadying hand of someone who still cares enough to check the math. Because the paradox we live with was never a curse, it was an invitation. We can hold more knowledge than any generation before us and still choose wonder. We can feel small and still act big. We can be fragile and still build things that last. So look up tonight. Find that steady ember in the dark and let it tutor your pulse. Then look around you, here, now, on the only world that knows it's a world. Add your mass to what is good. Protect an orbit. Anchor a truth. Bend your curiosity towards service. If Jupiter keeps the solar system in time, let us keep the meaning in tune. And should the day ever come when the giants fall silent, let it also be the day we learn to sing.